Hi, it's Rena from No Way That's Healthy, and today I'm going to show you just how easy it is to make your bread at home. You may be intimidated, but I'm going to break it down so that it's really simple, and best part is about this, that not only are these healthy using whole spelt, but also they are quick to make. There's a very short rising time, and they're going to be in and out of the oven in no time for you to enjoy. To make the rolls, all you're going to need is some warm water, instant yeast, eggs, salt, honey, olive oil, flour, and a bit of muscle in your arms to mix it all up. I'm starting off by adding the water into the bowl, and what you want here is a warm water. So what does that mean? You want it to be similar to the temp you would make a baby's bath, but what I like to do is I like to heat up water, and then half that water is going to be hot and the other half will either be cold or room temp, and that's when you usually get that perfect temperature. Once you add that into the bowl, you're going to sprinkle on your dry yeast. Now, because this is a quick rise recipe, there's actually a significant amount of yeast in there. And once we add those two together, you're going to just give it a little bit of a mix. Here I'm using this dough hook, and I really love this. I like using it for mixing like muffin batters, pancake batters, and the beginning parts of a dough. You don't want to use it for the whole thing because it doesn't work that well, but at the very beginning, I absolutely love this, and it's going to be linked below because it's one of my favorite kitchen utensils. Now I'm doing this by hand because I don't need to take out a mixer. This is just super simple for me, but you can of course do this in a mixer and double, triple the recipe. It'll be fine. When I double or triple the recipe, I actually use a little bit less yeast because if you're double or tripling it, you're gonna have a lot of yeast, so you can go down a bunch of the yeast. You're gonna let it sit for a couple minutes just so it starts to get bubbly. But honestly, if you're short on time, you could skip this part because dry yeast is almost always active unless it's super, super old. Sat for a bit, we're just going to give it a mix, and then we're going to add in the other ingredients. Starting off with the olive oil. You could use any oil that you like, but I like the flavor of the olive oil in here. I'm going to pour in to that cup some honey, and that way it's gonna come out really quickly because I already had the oil in there, which will make it non-stick. Now the sweetness level's up to you here. If you want to use less or more, it'll totally work. And now just add that in, and then add in your eggs, and we're gonna give that a mix. You want to break up the eggs there, get that honey dissolved, and mix everything together really nicely. I'm not sure if you noticed, but I actually put a towel on the bottom of this bowl because it tends to slip around or make some noise on my counter, and I don't like that, so I just kind of put that there so that it is easier to mix. Now it's about 7 to 8 cups of flour. That's actually a kilo, and I live in Israel where we go by kilo, so it's actually really easy for me because I just use an entire bag, but I actually am going to add in almost the whole bag, but not the full amount. That way I can adjust and add more if I need. So start off with closer to 6 or 7 cups and then work your way up. And then we're gonna add in some salt. I'm using Himalayan salt here, but you can also use sea salt. I really like sea salt, so Himalayan or sea. Okay, and now we mix. At the beginning, you're going to want to use a spoon or a spatula, like this dough hook here, to mix this together because it's a bit sticky. And then once it gets a little bit stiffer, you're going to want to go in with your hands. And for that, I usually just use rubber gloves just so that it's a little bit less messy. So you see how nicely this dough already is coming together. I only mix it a couple times. Okay, so you see at this point, it's pretty stiff. That's enough that this is going to go. So I'm going to remove all that extra little dough on the dough hook. One of my other tips with this dough hook is always wash it immediately after you used it. That way nothing gets stuck in the crevices. You can let it soak a bit, but I wouldn't do it for very long, but just let it soak for a little and then you can easily wash it off. You see it's pretty sticky. You don't want it to be so sticky when you're using whole spelt. You don't want it to be crazy sticky. When you're using whole wheat, it's okay if it's a little bit stickier. But it's honestly such a good dough. You're gonna wanna make this all the time just because it's so enjoyable to make and easy. Okay, so I'm gonna add in a little bit more of this flour and then mix it in. I would say this part is maybe the hardest part, but it just requires some little bit of muscle to get this dough together. But let me tell you, it's a great, great dough. Once you're rolling it out into the rolls, oh my gosh, you're gonna be obsessed. Okay, and now, I'm gonna remove my gloves because it's not so sticky anymore. And you can tell, yeah, see how it's not sticking to my hand? That's when you know it is perfect. So now we're going to let it sit for just a bit, about 5 minutes or so, because like I said, this is a quick rise recipe. We're not letting it sit for an hour and coming back to it. We're going to Let this sit for just a bit, and then we're gonna roll them out. What I like about using this bowl is that it has a lid on it, but you can also just cover it with a bag or a clean shower cap that you use for the kitchen, but I'm just gonna cover it with this and let it sit 5 minutes. Okay, it's been 5 minutes, and now I'm just going to uncover it, and you can probably see that it's already risen during just those 5 minutes. Now over here, I have a baking sheet that I lined with parchment paper for easy cleanup. Now what you do is totally up to you. You can take some of the dough, literally roll it into a bowl and put it onto a pan. You do not need to get all fancy here, but I am gonna show you one of the ways that I like to serve it, and I think it just looks really nice. So what I'm doing here is taking a piece of dough, flattening it out, and rolling it up to look like a baguette, and placing it onto the pan. Again, we're gonna take some of that dough. It might be sticky. You don't want it to be too sticky, so make sure you add enough flour and either oil or flour the counter a tiny bit. Oil I find is actually a little bit easier to do than flour because it's less messy. And then roll it up. And onto the pan. I'm gonna show you the difference when I use some oil. So I'm putting a little bit of oil onto the dough, a little bit onto the counters. It kind of makes it non-stick, and then it's just really easy to roll these up. So we're laying it out like this and rolling it up. You have it. Does not need to be perfect. These are gonna rise nicely on the pan for about 10 minutes before we bake them. That's it, just 10 minutes. Usually recipes call for hours at a time or 30 minutes at least, but this is not that. It's much easier. As you see, they're not perfect, and that's the point here. We don't have time to be perfect. We just want to get these into the oven. While these are sitting, we're going to preheat the oven. You can egg wash the top of these, but I find that an extra step I don't need, but I will spray some water over the tops of them. I have this handy little water sprayer that I just use always in the kitchen. An optional sprinkle on top anything that you like. I like to do sesame seeds. I just sprinkle it on top, and they should stick decently. And pat them in a little bit. You can do everything bagel seasoning. You can do anything that you really like on top of here. You can do some garlic and herbs, some salt and olive oil for the garlic rolls. But I like this simple, easy, delicious, and pretty. I'm gonna let these sit, and then we're gonna go in the oven in a few minutes. Into the oven these go. Okay, they're out of the oven. They look incredible. My house smells amazing. Wow, okay, we're going to pick one up and take it out for you to see what it looks like. These are hot. Ooh. See that? This one's steaming. How good that looks. Should break into it. Okay, so technically you should wait a little bit, but for you, I'm gonna break it open so you can see how delicious it looks inside. Oof, it's fluffy. Is soft but also not dry at all. These are perfect to go on the side of like soup, or just put some butter on it and call it a meal. Oh wow, these are just absolutely delicious, so easy to make, and healthier than your typical bread you'll probably buy at the store. You have got to try this one. If you do, comment below, let me know. I have a feeling you're gonna want to today. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share with your friends.